So after Phuket, I went to Korea because my friend Dave was there, and he said that there was a good opportunity to make money. And so I had gone to Korea. I had met up with David, and in just a year and a half, I managed to save quite a lot of money because back in the day, you could make decent money in Korea. And when I was ready to come back to Thailand, of course, I went to Phuket, and I couldn't find Lada anymore. I was determined not to start a serious relationship, but I wanted to see her at the very least because I had such a good time with her. But even her best friend didn't know where she went, so that's how it went. Back in the day, the girls came, they needed to make money. Once they made some money or met some suitable husband, they married or they returned to the family, and it was just that's the way it went. And so there was no sign of Lada, and so I decided to check out Koh Samui and Krabi and other parts of Thailand, and so I did. I traveled around Thailand a bit more, and just the more time I spent in Thailand, the more I felt like I wanted to stay there for the long term. One day on my visit to Bangkok, I ran into an expat teacher, and he told me he was working at a school and making decent amount of money, and I thought this was the year 2000, something around the year 2000 or so, and I don't remember exactly. And he told me that he could maybe get me a job at his school. So I was pleading with him repeatedly until he actually did. And so for the first time, I was able to stay in Thailand without interruption and continuously. And by this time, Thailand was getting wealthier, as the only stable country in a very volatile region. It reaped the benefits of tourism, of foreign investment, and so gradually the local people, even the middle classes or even the poor Thais were able to afford motorbikes, and many of them got jobs, including the girls. They got jobs in these foreign invested companies, and so while I was able to start making money and I didn't have to leave Thailand finally, and this was in Bangkok. At the same time, the bar scene was starting to get more subdued as more girls went to school and more girls got other jobs. The bar scene gradually was less and less interesting and more expensive, so to speak. So while I was working in Bangkok, of course, I loved it. It was interesting to hang out in Bangkok. The nightlife was still there, of course. It was just a tad more subdued. I ended up taking trips around Thailand, and I needed a visa, so I booked a flight to Udon Thani from where I was going to go to Laos to get me a working visa. And then I discovered, I spent the night in Udon Thani. I met some people, and it turned out that Udon Thani itself was just like Thailand in the 80s. It was slightly backward compared to Bangkok and Pattaya, but I just loved it. It reminded me of my first visits to Thailand, and so I ended up going to Udon Thani on numerous occasions and in my free time and stuff like that. Yeah, so during this time I took trips to Pattaya over the weekends, and when I had more time I took trips elsewhere, and I got to see more and more of Thailand. having explored most of Thailand, I realized that I had not explored the south, and so one day I saw an ad for a job in Hat Yai, that's Songkhla province, southern Thailand, and I was offered a position at this school in Hat Yai. I took it, and this ended up being a wonderful new experience. And you know, the guys at the school where I had taught were just the kind of people I'd like to meet and hang out with. They were kindred spirits, and soon we went out to restaurants, bars. We ended up going for holidays together to Krabi, and so it was a great bunch of guys. And I met one of them was a motorcycle enthusiast, so his name was Alistair, and we were both heavily into motorcycles, and so we started chatting, and very soon we became closer friends, and we started taking rides. And on one of these rides, Al had an old BSA motorbike which he restored himself, and the bike was in great condition, and so we decided to take a ride down to Betong, all the way down near the Malaysian border, and on the eastern coast. And so I had a scooter at the time, and we took this ride down to Betong, and quite an experience. At the time there was a heavy insurrection. There was unrest. The Muslim majority was rebelling against Thaksin Shinawatra, and we stopped by at a Muslim restaurant for a curry lunch, and they warned us not to proceed through a certain bridge in town. I think this was in Yala province, and they said we should not go there because there might be trouble. And me and Alistair, we were too adventurous. While we took caution, we certainly wouldn't abandon the trip, and so we ended up chatting with the locals in the restaurant, and maybe 30 or 40 minutes later we set out to go anyway. And as we reached the bridge that the locals had talked about, and then we saw armored personal carriers and soldiers, and they were defusing a bomb. So it turns out if the locals had not held us up, we might have gotten to the bridge before the soldiers did, and we easily could have been blown up because the bridge had been booby-trapped, as it turned out. So they saved our lives. The fact that we decided to stop for lunch in this restaurant had saved our lives. And the rest of the ride to Betong was quite amazing because there are little curvy roads, mountain roads. It's a mountainous region, and Al's BSA motorbike with its thumping sound could easily be mistaken for a 45 caliber machine gun. It was like tu-tu-tu-tu-tu-tu, and the sound of the engine was echoing against the mountainsides. And we emerged after a curve, and we saw a bunch of military guys pointing their guns at us because they thought maybe these were some kind of rebels with a machine gun coming at them. And so it was a very tense moment, but the moment they saw the motorbike, they realized the sound was coming from that, so they just waved us through. And you can see in the photos us going to Betong, and it was quite an experience, yeah. And so, yeah, Thailand, southern Thailand, Songkhla was definitely a great experience. And me and Alistair ended up going all the way to Malaysia. We took on another bike. We took several trips down to Malaysia, to Penang, Georgetown on the island of Penang, a UNESCO heritage city, and with its old British architecture and Malaysian and Chinese influence, is a beautiful town to hang out with. Everyone spoke English, so we took numerous trips down to Penang with Alistair, and this turned out to be one of the most interesting experiences in Thailand for me, in southern Thailand. Because Alistair was married with a kid, he could only go on shorter trips. So one day I decided to go alone and go up north towards Suratani, and all the way I wanted to see the city of Ayutthaya and the Khao Yai National Park. And so I decided to go up there, and as I was passing along the eastern coast, I came across a town called Khanom Beach, and this was a place I never heard about. It was not just about 70 kilometers south of Suratani, and it was an undiscovered part of Thailand. Very few Westerners or foreigners, tourists, knew about it, and so there was maybe a 5-mile long beach, white sand beach, and hardly any people, and just a couple of hotels. And I ended up just staying there because I thought it was absolutely wonderful. Khanom Beach had nice restaurants overlooking the whole bay, and the jungle just alongside and behind the beach was totally pristine. There were waterfalls, and I ended up staying there for quite a while. Yeah, so Khanom Beach was a new discovery for me, and I absolutely love it. And you can see in the pictures that it really is as pretty as I'm talking